The 6 words that reveal someone's true character and why people are drawn to them. Imagine this. Psychologists estimate that up to 90% of our first impressions are shaped not by looks or status, but by the words someone chooses. Just words. Think about that for a second. You've probably met someone who wasn't particularly wealthy, famous, or even impressive on the surface. Yet something about the way they spoke made you lean in, listen harder, and feel a magnetic pull toward them. Why? Because the words they chose revealed something far deeper, their true character. And human beings, whether we realize it or not, are wired to be drawn to authentic character. Now, let's pause here. I'm not teaching you some trick to manipulate people, and this isn't about memorizing magic words to control conversations. What we're doing today is uncovering how language reveals virtue, courage, empathy, and integrity. Marcus Aurelius, who spent his life surrounded by schemers and power struggles, wrote, "Observe their actions, understand their motives, and discover their inner nature." Words are one of the clearest windows into that inner nature. They separate surface charm from real authenticity. Surface charm tries to impress with performance, but authentic character? It doesn't need to perform. It simply reveals itself, and that revelation is attractive in the deepest sense. Today, I'm going to show you 6 simple words that act like signposts of genuine character. When you hear them used sincerely, you'll know you're in the presence of someone worth trusting, respecting, and maybe even following. And when you begin to use them authentically yourself, you'll notice people drawn to you, not because of tricks, but because virtue is magnetic. Stick around, because word number 4 is especially powerful. It demonstrates a kind of social courage that's rare in today's world. But let's not just talk theory. Let me give you a real story. Years ago, I was watching a corporate presentation where a manager made a huge mistake. She presented completely wrong financial projections to a board of executives, the kind of error that could wreck your career if you tried to spin it. The room got tense. You could feel everyone waiting to see how she'd react. And then she did something remarkable. She stopped mid-sentence and said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong about those numbers. Let me pause here and get the accurate data." No excuses, no shifting blame, just a clean, humble acknowledgement. The silence in the room broke, and something unexpected happened. The executives respected her more than if she had nailed the presentation. Why? Because her willingness to admit error revealed a character rooted in honesty, humility, and integrity. Seneca once said, "To err is human, but to persist in error is a fool's choice." What she showed that day was the opposite of foolishness. She showed wisdom through accountability. That brings us to the first word. Sorry. Not the fake, flimsy, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or the defensive, "I'm sorry, but." No. I mean the pure, unqualified, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." When someone can say this sincerely, it reveals several things at once. First, they're secure enough in themselves to admit imperfection. Second, they're honest enough to face reality even when it stings. Third, they're emotionally mature enough to take responsibility instead of shifting blame. Here's the thing. In today's world, people are obsessed with appearing flawless. Social media shows the polished, edited versions of ourselves. Politicians dodge responsibility with clever language. Influencers rarely admit mistakes. So when someone looks you in the eye and says, "I'm sorry, that was my fault," it cuts through the noise like a lighthouse in the storm. That's why genuine apologies are magnetic. They tell us this person values truth and growth more than their ego. But let's be clear, there's a big difference between authentic apologies and manipulative ones. Real apologies are specific and take ownership. They sound like, "I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. It was disrespectful, and I'll do better." Fake apologies shift blame or try to end the conversation. "I'm sorry you're upset." That's not taking responsibility, that's putting the weight back on the other person. So here's a question for you. Do you notice the difference when someone apologizes? Can you feel the integrity or the lack of it in their words? If so, type 1 in the comments to let others know you value real accountability over empty words. Now, saying sorry is one of the hardest things for the human ego to do. But when you encounter someone who does it cleanly, without qualifiers, you're looking at real character. Epictetus taught that acknowledging ignorance is the first step towards wisdom, and admitting when you're wrong is a living demonstration of that principle. But apologies only tell part of the story. The second word we need to explore reveals an even deeper layer of character, not just humility, but empathy in action. The word is help, offered before you even ask. Think about this. How often do you struggle silently, hoping someone will notice, but no one does? Most people are too caught up in their phones, their deadlines, or their own self-interest to notice. But then, every once in a while, someone stops, looks you in the eye, and says, "Can I help?" That's character speaking. I'll never forget one time at a conference. I was juggling too many things, bags, notes, coffee, and clearly overwhelmed. Dozens of people walked by, eyes glued to their schedules. And then one stranger paused, smiled, and said, "Need a hand?" That tiny moment shifted my entire day. They had no agenda, no networking angle, nothing to gain, just genuine recognition of another human being struggling. That's what made it powerful. Marcus Aurelius reminded us constantly of our duty to contribute to the common good. Those who live this out naturally, without seeking recognition, embody Stoicism in action. Offering help without being asked reveals empathy, awareness, and generosity all at once. And those qualities? They make people magnetic because they show you'll be supported not just in easy times, but in hard ones too. Now, let me drop a little psychology here. Research shows that people who notice and respond to others' unspoken needs score higher in emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success in relationships and leadership. Offering help without being asked isn't just a nice gesture, it's a signal of deep awareness and genuine care. But again, we have to separate the real from the performative. Genuine help is quiet, humble, and free of strings. It doesn't come with, "Well, I helped you, now you owe me." It simply says, "I see you. Let me lighten your load." Now, before we move on, let me ask you this. When was the last time someone offered help before you even asked? Or better yet, when was the last time you did it for someone else? Drop a comment below. Your story might inspire someone to act more generously today. We've seen how apologies reveal humility and how help reveals empathy. But the third word is where things get uncomfortable because it's about truth, and truth often costs us. The word is actually. Used when correcting misinformation, even if it makes things socially awkward. I'll tell you a story about a dinner party. Someone confidently dropped a statistic about climate change that was completely wrong. The group nodded along, and it would have been so easy to stay quiet. But one guest gently said, "Actually, the latest research shows something different." They offered the correct data, not to show off, not to win an argument, but because truth mattered. That's courage. That's integrity. And in a world where people stay silent to avoid rocking the boat, someone who prioritizes truth over social comfort is unforgettable. If you've ever been in a situation like that, where correcting a falsehood felt risky, stick around, because in the next part, I'm going to reveal a word even more powerful. It's the word that shows the rarest kind of social bravery, the kind of bravery that not only reveals character, but sets people free. Let's pick up right where we left off. We just uncovered how the words sorry, help, and actually reveal hidden truths about someone's character. Each one demonstrates humility, empathy, or courage in action. But now we move into even rarer territory, the kind of strength that makes people stop and pay attention, because it shows self-respect in its purest form. The fourth word is simple, but it's one of the hardest to say: no. Think about how often we give in to requests we don't actually want to accept. You say yes to going out, even though you're exhausted. You agree to take on another project at work, even when your plate is overflowing. You lend money you can't really spare just to avoid disappointing someone. And each time, a piece of your integrity erodes because you traded authenticity for approval. Now imagine the opposite. Someone looks you in the eye and with calm confidence says, "No, that doesn't work for me." No excuses, no guilt, no elaborate defense. Just a boundary drawn with clarity and respect. Isn't that strangely attractive? It's magnetic because it reveals rare strength. I saw this in action at a networking event. A group of colleagues were pressuring one man to stay out late drinking. The jokes started flying. "Come on, don't be boring. Be a team player. Just one more round." Most people would have caved under that social weight. But he simply smiled and said, "No, I'm heading home. Have a good night." That was it. No defensiveness, no apology, just a clear, firm choice. And you know what happened? People respected him more. Here's why. Saying no communicates three things at once. First, self-awareness. You know your limits and values. Second, self-respect. You believe your needs matter. Third, integrity. You refuse to compromise your principles for approval. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. Saying no is judgment in action. It's choosing your authentic needs over someone else's expectations. But here's the twist. Many people confuse healthy boundaries with selfishness. They think, if I say no, I'm letting others down. The truth? Saying no from integrity isn't selfish, it's respectful. It sets clear expectations and prevents resentment later. Selfishness takes from others. Healthy boundaries protect yourself without harming anyone. So, next time you feel the weight of saying yes when you mean no, remember, every no you say to others is a yes to your values, your priorities, and your peace of mind. And, ironically, people trust you more because they know your yes actually means something. Now let's move to the fifth word, congratulations, but not the polite, shallow kind. I mean, congratulations spoken with genuine joy for someone else's success. Here's the test. When a friend lands a promotion, buys their dream home, or achieves a personal milestone, how do you feel inside? Do you feel happy for them, or does a small part of you compare, resent, or feel threatened? Most people hide jealousy behind polite words. They say, "Congratulations," but their tone or body language betray envy. But when someone can celebrate your win as if it were their own, it reveals extraordinary character. It shows security, abundance, and generosity of spirit. I'll never forget the day I got a major career breakthrough. Most colleagues congratulated me with stiff smiles and quick nods. But one friend's reaction was different. Her face lit up, her voice brimmed with excitement, and she said, "You worked so hard for this. I'm thrilled for you." Her joy was so genuine, it almost felt like she'd won too. That's rare. Seneca reminded us, "He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." The opposite is also true. Those who celebrate others gain a kind of joy that envy can never touch. When someone says congratulations sincerely, without hidden competition, it shows they're secure in their own worth. They believe success isn't scarce. They don't see life as a zero-sum game. And here's why this matters for you. People who celebrate others' wins become the kind of friends, partners, and colleagues everyone wants. They don't diminish your light, they reflect it back brighter. They create an environment of support, not rivalry. That's why authentic congratulations are magnetic. They build trust and joy, not tension and comparison. So let me ask, when was the last time you celebrated someone else's win with genuine joy, no matter how it compared to your own situation? Think about it, because the way you handle others' success says more about your character than how you handle your own. Now we've seen humility in sorry, empathy in help, courage in actually, boundaries in no, and generosity in congratulations. But there's one final word, the deepest, most powerful of them all. It's the word that creates true human connection, the kind people never forget. And that word is understand. But before we dive into that, hit the like button if this is resonating with you, and subscribe so you don't miss the most important lesson of all. Because in the next section, we're going to explore why genuine understanding is the rarest and most magnetic trait of all. Let's continue with the sixth and final word, the one that cuts deepest into the soul of human connection. The word is understand. Think about this. How often do you talk to someone and realize they weren't really listening? Maybe they were nodding politely, maybe they jumped in with advice before you finished, or maybe they shifted the focus back to themselves. Most conversations in our modern world are two monologues happening side by side. Rarely do you find someone who listens so deeply that you feel seen, heard, and valued. That's why the word understand is magnetic when it's real. Let me share a personal experience. I once went through a particularly difficult season. Stress at work, family issues, and health concerns all colliding at once. I tried opening up to a few people. Most responded the same way. They offered quick fixes, compared it to their own experiences, or tried to cheer me up with platitudes like, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." And while well-intentioned, it left me feeling even more isolated because they hadn't really grasped what I was carrying. She listened in silence, asked thoughtful questions, and after a long pause simply said, "I understand why this feels so overwhelming. You've been holding so much at once. It's no wonder you're exhausted." That moment hit me harder than any advice could, because it wasn't about fixing me. It was about seeing me. And being seen is one of the deepest human needs. When someone says, "I understand," and proves it by reflecting back your feelings accurately, they're giving you one of the greatest gifts, empathy without judgment. Marcus Aurelius emphasized over and over the importance of understanding others' motives and perspectives. He knew that wisdom requires stepping outside your own narrow view and entering someone else's world. Now here's the key. Fake understanding is easy to spot. It sounds like, "Yeah, I get it," but then immediately pivots to their own story or advice. Real understanding is specific. It shows they've actually absorbed the details of your experience. It may even reflect back your emotions in words you hadn't yet found yourself. Why does this matter so much? Because people who understand create safe relationships. You don't have to perform, defend yourself, or explain yourself endlessly. You can simply be, And that's what makes understanding magnetic. It signals emotional maturity, empathy, and genuine care, the kind of character that builds lifelong trust. Think about the last time you felt truly understood. Didn't it feel like a weight was lifted? Didn't it deepen your respect for the person who gave you that gift? Now flip the question, when was the last time you made someone else feel that way? Did you notice how their guard dropped, how their tone softened, how their trust in you grew? Understanding isn't just a word, it's a practice. It requires slowing down, silencing your own agenda, and being fully present. And in a world full of noise, that presence is rare and precious. So let's recap. The 6 words that reveal true character are sorry, when it's real, without excuses; help, offered before being asked; actually, spoken to correct misinformation gently; no, setting boundaries with quiet confidence; congratulations, given with genuine joy for others' success; understand, proving empathy through deep listening. Together, these 6 words form a portrait of authentic character. They reveal humility, empathy, courage, self-respect, generosity, and connection. Qualities that make us magnetic not because we're performing, but because we're aligned with truth and virtue. Seneca once said, "A good character, when established, is not easily overthrown." These words aren't tricks. They're reflections of a character forged in self-mastery and care for others. And when you live them consistently, you won't need surface charm. People will be drawn to you naturally because virtue is more compelling than any performance. So here's your takeaway. Pay attention. Notice these words in others. Practice them in yourself.
Use them authentically, not strategically, and watch how your relationships shift. Because the kind of magnetism rooted in virtue doesn't fade. It grows stronger with time. If you found these insights valuable, subscribe to Stoic Insights 365 so you never miss the next lesson. And in the comments, share which of these 6 words you find hardest to say sincerely. Your answer might inspire someone else to grow. Now, in the next series, we're going to unlock the most powerful Stoic habit for emotional resilience, a practice that Marcus Aurelius himself relied on daily to stay grounded amid chaos. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Let's move forward. We've completed the exploration of the 6 words that reveal true character. Now, let's transition into the next part of this 60-minute journey, where we start connecting these lessons to daily life through a deeper Stoic habit that transforms resilience. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, sitting in his tent during a brutal military campaign. He has the weight of an empire on his shoulders, betrayals in his court, wars at the borders, and yet every night he takes out his wax tablets and writes notes to himself. Not speeches to impress others, not letters for public approval, just raw, personal reminders about how to think, act, and endure. Those writings became what we now call meditations. Now here's the powerful statistic. Psychologists today estimate that people who journal regularly reduce their stress levels by up to 50%. That's half your stress gone simply by translating your chaotic thoughts into structured words. Isn't that incredible? And Marcus was doing it 2,000 years ago, without any therapist, without self-help books, without an app, just pen, wax, and honesty. So here's the Stoic habit I want to give you in this section: the nightly review. It's simple. At the end of your day, you ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? And what can I do better tomorrow? That's it. 3 questions. But don't underestimate the simplicity. When you practice this consistently, you are training the very muscles of self-awareness, humility, and growth that we saw in those 6 words earlier. Let me share how this works in modern life. A client of mine, a CEO, came to me completely overwhelmed. His days were packed with meetings, decisions, fires to put out, and by the end of each week, he felt like he was just surviving, not leading. I suggested he implement the nightly review. At first, he resisted. "I don't have time to journal," he said. But then he tried it, 5 minutes before bed. After 2 weeks, he told me something remarkable. "I feel like I finally see myself clearly. Instead of being stuck in the chaos, I notice patterns. I catch mistakes earlier. I'm calmer." That's the power of reflection. Seneca wrote that each day we should call ourselves to account. He compared it to a courtroom where you are both the judge and the defendant.
You don't punish yourself. You examine yourself. You bring your actions into the light so you can live tomorrow more wisely than today. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't this just like writing a diary? Not exactly. A diary records events. The Stoic nightly review sharpens your character. You're not asking what happened today. You're asking, how did I respond? Did I live by virtue, or did I let anger, fear, or ego lead me? That's the difference. Here's an exercise you can try tonight. Take a notebook, doesn't have to be fancy, and write down one situation where you handled yourself well. Maybe you stayed calm in traffic. Then write one where you fell short. Maybe you snapped at your spouse. Then commit to one change for tomorrow. Maybe it's pausing before you speak when frustrated. That's it, 3 minds. But do it consistently, and you'll feel yourself becoming more grounded, calmer, and more resilient. Here's where it ties back to the 6 words. When you practice nightly review, you naturally strengthen those qualities. You become quicker to say sorry because you're used to noticing your mistakes. You offer help more often because you're scanning your day for missed opportunities. You say actually when truth matters because you've trained yourself to value accuracy over ease. You hold your no with confidence because you've clarified your values. You say congratulations sincerely because you've confronted your own envy on paper. And you say understand more authentically because you've practiced understanding yourself. See the connection? Reflection makes virtue a habit. It's not about knowing Stoic principles intellectually. It's about weaving them into the fabric of your daily choices. But let me challenge you. Tonight, before you sleep, instead of scrolling on your phone or zoning out on Netflix, grab a piece of paper and ask those 3 questions. Tomorrow, notice how you carry yourself differently. You'll feel lighter, clearer, and more in control. And if you commit to it for 30 days, you'll notice an unshakable calmness even when chaos swirls around you. Now here's the teaser. Reflection is powerful, yes, but Stoicism isn't just about private journaling. It's also about public resilience. In the next part, I'll reveal the Stoic strategy Marcus Aurelius used to face critics, gossip, and public attacks without losing his peace. This is one of the most practical tools you'll ever learn for handling modern stress, and I promise it will change how you deal with difficult people forever. We ended the last section with the practice of nightly review, reflection as a way to sharpen virtue. But reflection alone isn't enough. Life doesn't just test us in the quiet moments with a journal. It tests us in the loud moments, when people criticize, gossip, or attack. That's where Stoicism reveals its real power. Imagine this. You wake up, check your phone, and see a negative comment on your social media post.
Or you walk into work and a colleague makes a subtle jab at your performance. Or worse, you hear through the grapevine that people are gossiping behind your back. What's your instinct? Most of us get defensive, angry, or spiral into self-doubt. But Marcus Aurelius faced far worse: plots, betrayals, public criticism and still kept his composure. How? Marcus wrote in Meditations, "When someone speaks ill of you, remember that they act or speak from their own impression of what is fitting. It is not necessary that you be hurt unless you choose to feel hurt by it." In other words, criticism is just sound waves. Gossip is just words. It's only when we give them power, by attaching our judgment, that they wound us. Here's a striking modern statistic. Studies in psychology show that negative feedback impacts us 5 times more strongly than positive feedback. That's why one insult can ruin your day even if 10 people praised you earlier. Your brain is wired for survival, so it reacts more intensely to threats. But Stoicism teaches us to break that wiring by reframing criticism as simply opinion, not fact. Let me share a story. A client of mine, a public speaker, once froze during a keynote when a heckler shouted from the crowd, "This is boring." In that moment, his chest tightened, his mind raced, and he almost walked off stage. Later in coaching, we practiced a Stoic shift. Instead of taking the insult as truth, see it as data about the other person. Maybe they were impatient, tired, or wanted attention. But their outburst wasn't a reflection of his worth. Months later, at another event, the same thing happened. A man yelled, "You're wasting our time." And instead of panicking, he smiled and calmly said, "Thank you for sharing your perspective. Let's continue." The audience applauded. Why? Because composure under fire is magnetic. Seneca once wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." Criticism often lives in our imagination, not in reality. When we stop letting words dictate our peace, we become unshakable. Now let's get practical. How can you apply this today? Here are 3 Stoic steps for handling criticism. Pause before reacting. When you hear criticism, breathe. Remind yourself, this is opinion, not truth. It only becomes a wound if I let it. Separate what's useful from what's noise. Sometimes criticism contains feedback you can grow from. If it does, use it. If it's just noise or insult, discard it. Don't drink poison willingly. Respond with calmness, or not at all. A measured response, or even silence, shows strength. Remember Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Here's the twist. Criticism can actually serve you. Think of it like a gym for your mind. Every insult, every jab, every piece of gossip is a chance to practice self-control. Instead of asking, "Why me?" try asking, "What muscle can I build here?" Maybe patience, maybe detachment,
Maybe compassion for someone too bitter to speak kindly. And here's something to chew on. In a world obsessed with image, the person who doesn't flinch at criticism becomes unforgettable. People can sense your inner fortress. They know you're not easily swayed by opinion, and that makes you trustworthy. So let me ask you, the last time someone criticized you, did you react or did you respond? Did you let their words live rent-free in your head, or did you see them as passing sounds in the air? Share your answer in the comments. You'll inspire others who are struggling with the same battle. Now here's what's coming next. We've talked about criticism, but there's another challenge: anger. The heat of the moment when someone cuts you off in traffic, insults you in a meeting, or disrespects you in public. That's when Stoicism offers one of its most radical tools, turning anger into strength. And in part 6, I'll show you exactly how Marcus Aurelius and Seneca dismantled anger at its root.
We just explored how Stoicism helps you handle criticism with calm detachment. But if criticism is like rain, anger is the thunderstorm. It's louder, more violent, and far more destructive if left unchecked. Picture this. You're driving home after a long day. Someone cuts you off recklessly. Your blood pressure spikes. Your hands tighten on the wheel. Your mind floods with what you'd like to shout if you could. That's anger in its rawest form. Sudden, consuming, and almost impossible to control if you haven't trained for it. Seneca, in his masterpiece On Anger, called it the most hideous and frenzied of all emotions. He described anger as temporary madness. Why? Because it hijacks reason. It blinds judgment. It makes us say or do things we regret later. And modern science agrees. Neuroscientists have shown that when anger surges, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making, shuts down, while the amygdala, the fight-or-flight center, takes over. That's why anger feels so explosive, and why it leads to rash actions. But the Stoics had a weapon against anger: reframing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But none of them can harm me, for no one can implicate me in wrong." In other words, expect human flaws. If you anticipate rudeness, betrayal, or selfishness as part of the package of life, you won't be shocked or enraged when they appear. Let me share a story. I once coached a man who struggled with workplace anger. Every time his boss criticized him publicly, he'd feel humiliated and lash out. I suggested a Stoic experiment. Instead of seeing his boss as an enemy, imagine him as a flawed human, acting from his own pain or ignorance. The next time it happened, his boss snapped at him in a meeting.
Instead of erupting, he paused, took a breath, and said, "Thank you for pointing that out. I'll reflect on it." Later, he told me, "It was like magic. My boss had nothing to push against, and the whole room respected me more." That's the power of reframing anger. Now let's get practical. Here are 3 Stoic techniques to master anger. Delay your response. Seneca advised, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Count to 10. Walk away. Breathe. Give your rational mind time to return. Depersonalize the offense. Remind yourself, their action reflects their character, not your worth. They're acting from ignorance, pain, or habit, not from some divine mission to destroy you. See the bigger picture. Ask, will this matter a year from now? Marcus often zoomed out to the cosmic scale. Life is short, the universe vast. Why waste your brief time on Earth in fury? Modern psychology calls this cognitive reappraisal, changing the story you tell yourself about an event. And the data shows it works. Reappraisal reduces anger, lowers blood pressure, and even improves relationships long-term. But here's the twist. Anger isn't just destructive, it's seductive. It feels powerful in the moment. It makes you feel righteous, like you're standing up for yourself. But the Stoics warned that this is an illusion. Anger doesn't make you strong, it makes you weak because it hands control of your actions to someone else. As Epictetus said, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. So here's your challenge. The next time you feel anger rising, pause and remind yourself, if I react blindly, I give them power. If I respond calmly, I keep my freedom. That's the Stoic path, turning anger into strength by transforming reaction into reflection. Now let's dive into how Stoicism dismantles envy, greed, and the endless chase for more. This might be the most liberating lesson yet, because until you master desire, you'll never feel free. We've walked through apologies, help, truth, boundaries, celebration, understanding, reflection, criticism, and anger. Now it's time to tackle another battlefield where Stoicism shines. Desire and comparison. Because if anger is fire, desire is a slow-burning smoke. It clouds your vision and keeps you chasing shadows. Here's a shocking modern statistic. Researchers found that people who scroll social media for just 30 minutes a day report up to 30% higher feelings of envy and dissatisfaction. Why? Because every scroll is a comparison game, you versus the highlight reels of others. And comparison breeds desire. Desire for what they have, desire for what you don't. And desire, unchecked, breeds misery.
Epictetus warned us clearly. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. He wasn't saying money is evil or success is wrong. He was pointing out something deeper. If your happiness depends on acquiring more, you'll never arrive. The finish line will always move further away. Let me give you a modern example. A young entrepreneur I worked with was earning 6 figures, something most people dream of. But he was constantly miserable because he kept comparing himself to billionaires on LinkedIn. No matter how much he achieved, someone else always had more. Bigger company, bigger house, bigger stage. He was trapped in what Seneca called the endless slavery of insatiable desire. So what's the Stoic solution? Reframe wealth, success, and status in terms of sufficiency. Ask yourself, what do I actually need to live well? Marcus Aurelius had unimaginable power, yet he reminded himself daily, food, shelter, and clothing are enough. Everything else is bonus. When you train your mind to see enough instead of not enough, you reclaim peace. Here are 3 Stoic practices to dismantle desire and comparison. Negative visualization. Imagine losing what you already have, a home, a loved one, your health. Not to depress yourself, but to cultivate gratitude. This was a daily practice for the Stoics. Seneca advised, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." And when you do this, suddenly the things you already own feel priceless. Voluntary discomfort. Choose once in a while to live simply. Sleep on the floor. Eat plain food. Wear simple clothes. Marcus and Seneca both practiced this to remind themselves that luxury is sweet but not necessary. It kills the fear of loss because you realize you can endure without excess. Shift the metric. Instead of measuring your worth against others' possessions, measure it against your own virtues. Ask, am I more patient today than yesterday? Did I control my anger better this week than last? That's the Stoic scoreboard, and it's one you can always win. Let me share a story. A friend of mine, a musician, once told me he was depressed because he wasn't as famous as others in his field. He compared his audience size, his streaming numbers, his income, and always came up short. I asked him, "Why did you start making music?" He said, "To express truth, to heal myself, and to connect with people." Then I asked him, "Are you doing that right now, even for 10 people?" He smiled. That smile was freedom. He shifted his metric from fame to authenticity. And suddenly, he was rich again, rich in what really mattered. Here's the twist. Stoicism doesn't say, never enjoy anything. It says, enjoy things without becoming their prisoner. Eat a fine meal. Great. But remember you can live well without it. Buy a new car. Fine. But don't let your happiness depend on it.
As Epictetus said, it's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. If you see possessions as tools, not treasures, you'll never be enslaved. So let me ask you, what's one area where comparison steals your peace? Is it career, money, relationships, looks? Write it down. Then ask yourself, what do I already have here that is enough? That single shift could free you from years of invisible chains. Now, desire and comparison are internal battles, but there's an external challenge that Stoicism prepared us for just as powerfully: chaos and uncertainty. In Part 8, we'll dive into the Stoic mindset for facing chaos, wars, pandemics, personal crises with calm confidence. Because the truth is, life won't stop throwing storms at you. The key is learning how to become the calm eye of the storm. We just explored how Stoicism dismantles desire and comparison. Now we turn to another arena where philosophy becomes survival: chaos and uncertainty. Because life doesn't just tempt us with envy or sting us with criticism, it throws us into storms we never asked for. Picture the last few years: a global pandemic, economic upheavals, political unrest, personal crises layered on top. Did you feel the ground beneath your feet shake? Did you notice how fragile our sense of control really is? That's exactly the kind of environment Marcus Aurelius lived in: plagues, wars, betrayals, endless uncertainty. And yet, his writings radiate calm. How? He reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the essence of Stoicism in chaos. Control what you can, release what you can't. Here's a modern statistic. Studies show that people who focus on controllable actions during crises report 40% lower anxiety levels. It's not the chaos itself that crushes us. It's the illusion that we must control everything. Let me give you a story. During the 2008 financial crisis, one of my clients lost his job, his savings, and almost his sense of identity. He spiraled into panic, constantly refreshing news sites, obsessing over markets he couldn't control. Then he discovered Stoicism. He made one simple shift. Instead of asking, "What will happen to me?" he asked, "What can I do today that's within my power?" He started small: exercise, networking calls, updating skills. Within 6 months, not only had he found a new job, but his sense of calm had returned. Why? Because he stopped wrestling with chaos and started steering his own ship. Here are 3 Stoic strategies to face chaos with confidence. The dichotomy of control. Write down everything you're worried about. Then split the list. What's in your control? What's not? Focus 100% of your energy on the first column. Cross out the second, not because it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't belong to you. Anchor in routines. Marcus, even as emperor, clung to daily habits: writing, reflection, modest meals, physical training. Why?
Because routines are anchors in the storm. They give you a sense of order when the world feels like disorder. Practice amor fati, love of fate. Instead of resisting chaos, embrace it as training. When the Stoics faced storms, they saw opportunities to build strength. As Marcus put it, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let me ask you, when the last storm hit your life, did you freeze, fight, or flow? Did you resist what you couldn't change, or did you redirect your energy toward what you could? That single choice often determines whether chaos breaks us or builds us. Now here's the twist. Chaos doesn't just test us, it reveals us. Your true character isn't shown when life is calm. It's shown when life explodes and you decide whether to panic or to stand firm. That's why people are drawn to those who remain calm in crisis. Their stillness becomes contagious. Their presence becomes a refuge. So here's your challenge. This week, when you face uncertainty, whether it's financial stress, a tough conversation, or a global event, pause and repeat to yourself, "This is outside me. My response is inside me." And then act only from the inside. We've now learned how Stoicism arms us against anger, desire, and chaos.
But there's still another hidden enemy we must confront: the fear of death and loss. In Part 9, we'll explore the Stoic meditation on mortality, memento mori, and why remembering death is actually the key to living fully, freely, and fearlessly. We've faced criticism, anger, desire, and chaos. Now we step into the most profound battlefield of all, our fear of death and loss. Because at the root of so many anxieties, envies, and attachments lies the shadow of mortality. Here's a statistic that might surprise you. Psychologists report that nearly 70% of human fears trace back to the fear of death. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of aging, deep down, it's about the fragility of life. And yet the Stoics turned this fear into their greatest source of strength. They practiced memento mori, remember you must die. Not as a morbid obsession, but as a daily meditation that gave urgency to living. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." By keeping death in view, the Stoics weren't paralyzed. They were liberated. Because when you accept the inevitability of death, you stop fearing it. And when you stop fearing it, you start living fully. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the most powerful empire, whispering to himself each morning, "You may leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That wasn't despair. It was clarity. It sharpened his priorities. It reminded him to be just, kind, and present because tomorrow wasn't promised. Let me share a story. A man I worked with survived a near-fatal accident. For weeks afterwards, he felt haunted. But over time, his perspective shifted.
He told me, "That accident was the best thing that ever happened to me. It woke me up. I stopped wasting time on trivial arguments. I stopped postponing my dreams. I started telling my family I love them every day." That's memento mori in action, not a curse, but a call to live. Here are 3 Stoic exercises to turn fear of death into fuel for life. Daily reminder. Each morning, repeat Marcus's words, "You may leave life right now." Ask yourself, if today were my last, how would I want to show up? This doesn't paralyze, it energizes. Perspective shift. When stressed, zoom out. Imagine yourself 100 years from now, gone, along with everyone you know. Suddenly that rude email or awkward meeting seems less important. Mortality shrinks triviality. Legacy mindset. Ask, what values do I want to leave behind? Instead of fearing the end, focus on shaping what remains after you. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That embodiment becomes your legacy. Modern psychology calls this terror management theory. When we face mortality, we either cling to distractions or rise to meaning. The Stoics chose meaning, and you can too. Here's the twist. Remembering death isn't about gloom, it's about gratitude. When you realize every breath is borrowed, every sunrise becomes a gift, every conversation a treasure, every act of kindness a chance to leave a mark. So let me ask you, if you knew with certainty you had 1 year left, what would you stop wasting time on? What would you start doing today? Write it down, because that reflection may reveal your true priorities. Now, death is the great equalizer, but there's one more Stoic secret that ties all of this together. Not just handling criticism, anger, desire, chaos, and death, but weaving them into a life of unshakable resilience. In Part 10, we'll bring everything home. I'll show you the Stoic blueprint for lasting strength, a step-by-step guide you can practice daily to build a life anchored in calm, courage, and clarity. We've traveled through apologies, empathy, truth, boundaries, celebration, understanding, reflection, criticism, anger, desire, chaos, and even mortality. Now it's time to weave everything together into a Stoic blueprint for lasting resilience. Imagine this, your life as a fortress, not the kind built of stone, but one built of daily choices. Every time you practice humility, you lay a brick. Every time you choose truth over comfort, another brick. Every time you say no to protect your values or celebrate someone else's success sincerely, the walls grow stronger. And by the time storms come, criticism, anger, loss, chaos, you're not scrambling to build shelter. You're already protected. That's the Stoic blueprint. Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, wasn't writing for the world. He was building his own fortress. And his blueprint was simple. Control what's within, let go of what's without, live according to virtue. That's all.
Yet it made him one of the calmest leaders in history during one of Rome's most chaotic eras. So how do we apply this today? Let's turn all these lessons into a step-by-step guide you can practice immediately. Morning preparation. Before you check your phone, remind yourself, today you'll face rudeness, stress, temptation. Expect it so you won't be surprised. Ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? This sets intention before chaos hits. Daily practice of the 6 words. Be quick to say sorry when you're wrong. Look for chances to offer help without being asked. Say actually when truth needs defending, but with humility. Use no to guard your boundaries respectfully. Say congratulations with genuine joy for others. And above all, practice understand, listening deeply before speaking. Evening reflection. Ask, what did I do well? Where did I fall short? What can I do better tomorrow? This nightly review keeps your growth consistent and your ego in check. Reframing challenges. Criticism, opinion, not fact. Anger, a test of patience. Desire, a chance to practice gratitude. Chaos, training for inner order. Death, a reminder to live urgently and meaningfully. Build your community. Surround yourself with people who practice these virtues. Character is contagious. As Marcus said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. The same is true of your companions. Now, let me leave you with this. Resilience isn't built in a single moment. It's not forged by one book, one video, or one insight. It's built brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day. And when you live this way, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing strength and start embodying it. People will notice. They'll be drawn to your calm presence, your grounded responses, your steady integrity. Not because you're performing, but because you've become real. Seneca put it beautifully. As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. That's the Stoic vision. Not endless years, not flawless days, but a life lived with depth, virtue, and authenticity. So here's your challenge. Tonight start with one step. Maybe it's a genuine sorry. Maybe it's writing down your nightly review. Maybe it's offering help before someone asks. Pick one, practice it, and tomorrow add another. Over time, these small steps will reshape your character into something unshakable. And remember this final truth. Resilience is built, not born. Every storm is a teacher. Every setback a lesson. Every day a new chance to practice. Build your fortress brick by brick and watch how unshakable you become. If this journey has resonated with you, subscribe to Stoic Insights 365 for more wisdom from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, woven into practical steps for modern life. And check out our next video where we'll dive into the daily Stoic rituals that keep you grounded no matter what. Because wisdom is only wisdom when you live it.